Okay, now the first thing I'm going to do is just take a little WD-40 and spray it on some of the key parts I'm going to take off, like the top of the tie rod end controls for our spindle, and also I'm going to change this bolt that runs through our camber adjustment for the upper ball joint control. So I'm just going to dab a little bit of WD-40 on that. Now the next thing I'm going to need is an 11/16 socket, and I'm going to unstart to undo our caliper, our brake caliper, which is right here. And then the next step we'll be doing is undoing the caliper support. Now before I get started with the removal of the caliper, I'm going to take my keys, put it in the steering column, unlock it, and turn it all the way to the right. Okay, now we're going to use a 13/16 socket to remove our caliper support from the spindle. Now I'm going to be removing the rotor. Now we need a 1 inch and 1/16 socket to remove the nut that holds the rotor in place. And we're going to lift off our rotor. Our lower ball joint, let me see if I can, so you guys can see how bad the play is on this. Now this is our lower. The upper isn't really that bad. Now this is the right side front corner of the ball joint where it's mounted in on the F250. Now the right side tends to get a little bit more potholes and causes it to wear out a lot more premature than the driver's side. So I haven't taken off the driver's side yet, and we'll see how bad that one is once we get over there. But we can see how bad clearly that the ball joint is on this on the passenger side of the vehicle, clearly by seeing the play. So our next step is to remove our bolt here, our nut that holds the lower ball joint into place, and we've got to get out the cotter pin that's inside there, and then we're going to take it off and pull this one out. Now I'm going to use a a persuader bar to break it loose, which is an old pipe, old water pipe. And we're going to crank it on our socket wrench till we get it loose. Okay, same thing on this side. For our lower ball joint, we're going to take our half-inch socket, half-inch drive, and then we have the 1.1/8" socket on our lower ball joint, and we're going to use a persuader bar to break it loose. This old water pipe. This is our driver's side. Okay, now after undoing our lower ball joint, the next step is we're going to take off our camber tensioning bolt and nut here, and we have 5/8 at this end, and on the other side we have a 11/16. So that's going to be our next step, is to undo that, and then we take our chisel and pound it in between here, and this will free up our camber adjustment where our upper ball joint is mounted in, so we can free that up and release it. It's a really tight fit. Now that we have that loose, we're just going to take our chisel and separate out our camber adjustment a little bit. Now that we have our camber undone and released, the next step is we already have our bolt, the nut that holds the lower ball joint in place. We already have that removed, and our next step is we're going to take this 3/4 inch chisel, and it goes in between this point right here. I don't know if you guys can see that. It goes right in there in between the I-beam support along with our spindle right here, and we're going to hit this with a sledgehammer, and this will allow this our lower ball joint to crack loose, and with the camber adjustment undone, this should drop out fairly simple. So that's going to be our next step.